opportunity. I'm back to do a subscribers contest for the Omaha Introvert, her 500 subscribers contest. Hannah, as she goes by, has a very diverse interest in music. She is also a musician. If you're not familiar with her, check this out. Now, what I like about her contest was it's sort of like a mini vinyl tag. So she asked us to answer 5 different questions. And so I've been enjoying the responses thus far, and I decided to jump in on it. And so I'm just hoping that I can get it in before the deadline. If not, it's coming up afterwards. But her first question was, show us the best sounding album in your collection. And before I get into my response, I have to say I am an audiophile, but I do put music above the audio quality. I think if it wasn't for the software, we wouldn't have the hardware. I think the software is the most important part of anything. And, for me, I got exposed to a 6-figure system about a decade ago, and that system was just incredible. The sound was holographic. If I closed my eyes, I had a sense that this person was right there in front of me. I could hear his breath. I could feel the ambiance of the room that he was playing in. And ever since I had that moment, like drug addiction, I had to recreate it in my own system. I've been trying to. Will I ever afford a 6-figure system? Absolutely not. But I'm going to show you 3 examples here. I know you only asked for 1, but I'm going to talk 3, because the album I'm going to feature first is probably not going to be everyone's cup of tea. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So the album that did it for me is this one by Janos Starker, who is a cellist, and he's playing Johann Sebastian Bach. The pieces that he plays are actually quite well known, and this is a Speaker's Corner replica of the original. The originals go for 3 to 4 figures if you find it in good quality. The Speaker's Corner is pressed at Palace, and people who watch my channel know that I'm trying to document pressing plants and mastering engineers, because that is a key component to getting a good sounding record. Not the most critical. You got the actual recording, you have the mixing engineer, you have the mastering engineer, of course, so there's a lot of pieces that go into it, but this is just fantastic. And I know YouTube is going to compress this, so it's not going to be quite the same, but I'm hoping you can get a sense of what this sounds like. Now, the music I'm going to play for you is really quite famous, and they use it for coffee commercials and stuffy old people talking about coins you should buy. But anyways, I love this piece, and so here is Janos Starker's Suites for Unaccompanied Cello. Now, the second record I'm going to feature is also a really old recording, about 50 or 60 years old. Hannah, I know that you've just recently picked up an LP by this person, and that is Louis Armstrong. So if you see anything by Audio Fidelity, pick it up, because it's going to sound fantastic. And this record's no different. This is actually the Analog Productions reissue of this album. So this is actually the 3rd copy of this album that I own, and I do own an original, but this just sounds fantastic. Pressed at Quality Record Pressing, it just doesn't get any better. Louis feels like he is in your room with you when you hear this record, and this is really a good Louis Armstrong record. I know there's a lot of people that really don't care for Louis. He predates bebop, actually. And, he was of the New Orleans jazz style, but, his music is always very happy, but this track that I want to play for you is a little bit different. So I hope you get a sense of what else Louis can do for you. Now, I know a couple of people have shown this record. Rock records are very interesting, and this one sounds fantastic. So since people have already covered this ground, I didn't want to duplicate, but I do agree that this is a fantastic sounding album. The one that I did pick for you from the rock vein, well, actually it's a mix of stuff, is the music of David Lynch, and this is a benefit concert. Now, concerts are really difficult to record, but the mastering engineer on this is Scott Hall at Masterdisc. And Scott Hall is just a fantastic mastering engineer. I'm hoping to do a Tales of the Dead Wax down the line on him. But this is just an outstanding concert. You feel like you're in the front row. Who plays on it? Well, you got Moby, you got the Flaming Lips, you got Donovan, you got Duran Duran, Jim James, Karen O, Mike Lee. You got a bunch of different musicians. Now, the musician that really captivated me was Krista Bell, which is a muse of David Lynch. And I'll play you a couple of tracks off of this one so you get a sense of what it's like.
She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet was the night, softer than satin was the light from sway with me, baby, sway with me, baby, all through the night. I got a love on me.
So question number 2, I'm mixing these up. I should have probably said this one first. Hannah wanted to know where we're from. So first of all, I am from a suburb of Houston, Texas. Now, being an outsider of Texas, so I've been here for 19 years, but I'm originally from the state of Wyoming. But coming here as an outsider, you really get a sense of Texas pride, so to speak. And you know you're in a state that has a lot of pride when they take pride in their shape. And I think Texas takes more pride in the shape of the state than any other state out there. So yeah, you find waffle makers in the shape of Texas. So when I came down here, I got an old-fashioned square waffle maker, just like the shape of the state of Wyoming. So Wyoming is where I was born and raised, and it's right next door to your state of Nebraska. So that should have been question 1, but it's 2 for me. There you go. Question number 3, tell us a decade of music that you don't like. So I've been watching the responses thus far, and I'd say 95% of them have been the current decade, or 2000 and beyond. And I partially agree and I partially don't. I would say the state of pop music, which I've commented before, is on the state of decline in my opinion. The music industry has always been a money-making industry, and I think the state of greed has gotten worse and worse over time. I mean, you've always had songwriters that write for other artists, and what I don't like about music today is they will take an artist and they will try and conform that person to a certain demographic. So one of the examples I'd like to highlight here, and not to take away from her by any means, I do think she's talented, but I think the music industry has forced her in a particular direction, and that is Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift started out as a country artist. Now she is a pop artist. I don't think she writes any of her songs. I think, there are the occasional songs where, there is a guest rapper that will come in and sing 2 lines. So for me to lose your roots, lose your integrity, and, go in a direction that the industry is pushing you, I don't like. And I think the music suffers because of it, because you've lost your artistry. I do think there's good music out there. And so in the subsequent question, I want to show that, yeah, there is good modern music being made in this decade. You just got to dig for it. Now, to truly answer your question, I would have to say the 20s is a decade that I have a hard time getting into. Now, granted, recorded music was just starting then, but I think you were more bounded in the 20s. For me, jazz music, for example, just did not branch off until you got into the 30s, until you got into big band and you got into bebop. And I felt it was very constrained. So it's not to say that I'm an expert on 20s music by any means, but the stuff that I've heard, I can't get into. Now, there is some good stuff out there, but it's not so much like the other decades for me. So I'd have to say starting with the 20s. So the fourth question was give 5 psychedelic record recommendations. And, I've seen the responses, and the first time I heard the questions, this was easily one of the first things that came to my mind. But other people have shown it. Organ and guitar, just, to me that reeks of psychedelic music, and I love it. But, people have been showing H.P. Lovecraft, Pink Floyd, or Incredible String Band, Pink Floyd's Metal, one of my favorites, Jefferson Airplane. Yeah, there's been a lot of that. But, I wanted to take a different path and show some more obscure records and new records that maybe people just have not shown, at least not that I've seen. So the first one I'll show is a Nigerian psychedelic record, and that is Blow. And this is Berkeley, Laolu, and Odomoso. That's what Blow stands for. This is a 70s band, and this is a reissue. This is where psychedelic and rock music really started to hit Nigeria, kind of like Fela Kuti, and there were a bunch of others, but Blow was one of the ones that really put psychedelic music on the map in Nigeria, and this is just a fantastic album. Here's some sound samples for you. Next one I have for you is the Brian Jonestown Massacre, their Satanic Majesty's Second Request, which is a take on the Rolling Stones album. This is just fantastic. Brian Jonestown Massacre has been around for, well over 20 years now. They've always stayed true to the psychedelic sound, and I just love their stuff. This is featuring one of their more famous tracks, which I'd like to play for you right now. Next up is one that was introduced to me by BC member David Sequoia Flame. This is Acid Mother's Temple. Even the cover to this one is pretty psychedelic. This is a Japanese band, and these guys have been quite prolific. I feel like this is one of the better releases. This is The Ripper at the Heaven Gates of Dark, which is a nice take on a Pink Floyd title. But anyway, here's some sound samples from this one. Next up is a relatively recent record from the Temples. Their last one didn't do it for me so much, but this one is psychedelic to the core, and this is Sun Structures. I can't recommend this one enough. This is a 4-piece. I think they're from England. Just fantastic sounding. Here's a couple samples for this one for you.
When nighttime eventually comes, talk of all the dreams you surely have won. Mind your head and keep your hands firmly pressed into the earth. Everything that you need. Make the choice with the voice, speak within and talk away.
Now this last one I got a feature for you is new release from this year. This is a brand new band. I don't know a whole lot about them. I think it's a duo. This is Wet Tuna. And you hear this and it has moments of heavy fuzz guitar, then it goes right into an acoustic section. You got kind of an old VW van here, and that, you know, that's from the Psych age for sure. But this is just a fantastic band. I can't recommend it enough. And here's some sound samples from this one so you get a feel for what it's like. Okay, Hannah's last question, or which was a bonus question, was show an album with a cat. And I am featuring Astro Cat. And I hope this meets the bill of sale for you, Hannah. This is a fantastic funk band, kind of in almost in a 80s Gap band kind of way, I want to say. And just some fantastic voice box work. But yeah, this just takes you back to a time and a place. It's a nice EP. It's not a full length, but just fantastic. So here's a sound sample from this one. So Hannah, there you go. I hope you enjoyed my entry to your contest, and to all my subscribers, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Shoot me a comment down below, and I'll catch you next time.